Jamba Jumden Den Dishenship, Rajamba Yanda Banzo Vesan, Rivada Shazon Demban Devariship, Jidin Jamba Jivon Deva Kaloju, Name Van Adam Menang Jedu, Sanjay Jumden De Benjawa Shajatova, Chazano Jedu Jazu Jevo Demba Jumden, Dishenship Rajamba Yanda Banzo Vesan, Rivada Shazon Demban Devariship, Jidin Jamba Jivon Deva Kaloju, Lana Meba Lada Minageta, Sanjay Jumden de Bejawa Shajato Wana Chansi, Chedo Jazo Demba Jumden de Dishensu, Rajamba Yanda Manzobe Sanjay Riva, Shazon Dema Devarisha Vanjidenke, Jivon de Kalo Juana Name, Hada Menam Jedemba Sanjay Jumden, Bejawa Shajato Wana Chaza no Chedo Jazo, Kanze Ganyan Zobo Jadam Sea Sajan Dena. Mani Jiden de Nachojes, Tezekeba Jama Cha, Namda Guma Chodu, Yishi Jazo Sejan Humboda, Chava Jeden Suman, Gombo Choni Jama Cha, Zeno Senjo de Matimenda Vish, Sendon Rawa Jama Cha, Zeno de Richard Siva Sumat, Yame Jenjen Jama Cha, Zeno Gobotu Jeshen, Hamje Jembe Tomo was on the million dangers, the Jinsha La Cha, Zeno Taben de Shacho. Giving as one letter to Chidu Tanamachogu. Shinjur La Cha, Zeno, Trene Trevana, Lavatala Rabdu Ne, Shingetamba Yede. Gedula Ya Cha, Zeno, Tibachian Mishes, give up his own sofa, Jeranges and the Yosu. Tenesanya Dema Yagamara Rimamet. Gemase Vachu, the Melon Loda Jeda. The Jishanum de Drita, Sonam Dietum Jesse. Covanta Nejinja the Gadana da Chiva, Sibeso Lando and Droveration.
To the teacher, the last one, fully destroyed, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to retain, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shakya clan. I prostrate me offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When was supreme among humans, you are one in this earth. You paced out 7 strides that said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then, I prostrate. When the pure body is formed, supremely pure, wisdom ocean like golden mountain, thing that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are direct like the 3 worlds above. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit of the qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to dustness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime, pure reality, that Dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated, those who show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime unity intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Star, mirage, a flame of lamp, illusion, a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning or cloud. See conditionings as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain normalcy, subdue the flow of thoughts, and be delivered from motion of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Shalo Sanje Shalo Chanju Nagin Jeso Jebe Zonam Jaya Dola Benje Sanje Shalo Sanje Shalo Chanju Nagin Jeso Jebe Zonam Jaya Dola Benje Sanje Shalo Sanje Shalo Chanju Nagin Jeso Jebe Zonam Jaya Dola Benje Sanje Shalo Sanje Shalo Chanju Nagin Jeso Jebe Zonam Jaya Dola Benje Sanje
I go for refuge and tell him to the Buddha, Lama Tsongkaphas. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and tell him to the Buddha, Lama Tsongkaphas. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and tell to the Buddha, Lama Tsongkaphas. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Lana Meba Lada Mena Sanje Jimden de So, Dishin Sono Gevezawa Namachu Mesava Severa de Beja Samanam Jendra, Sanam Jembedo, Juyerim, Tonam Bedimba. Tebe Mevana Lumber Gavashera Sujimbedo, Tonam Sujato Jemba, Chanju Zamanam Yama, Pabe Kazana, Yavan, the Ishipadam Meba, Pava Soja Major, Sona Brata, Yani, Kuja, the Chomich, Kusumba, Kata. Suda Venyava Mago, Sumebata, the Menda, the Bota, Kamnanda Medemba Jason Namadam, the Vanation, the Yozo Dovata, Sibalia to Vachola gave a Ishio, the Devata, Majoma, the Sanjay Jimedi, Ishela Neva, Yangana, Devana, Medeva, Yadaman, Subject jealousy with Samachu. The Dania Sanjay Jimedi, Kuchivan, the Yanda, Vision, the Tomagi, Tomagi. Terms of what's interesting, Momadego, Yozo, Yozo Chawan Yata, Temper, Tucheva. Yavate Matetono, Teneva Kevano, Sozora, Ribachi, Chimney, Chendavala Levado, Yavajo was of a Chajo, the Drovachi, the Bamija de Bata. Temba Yuba, whatever Chimba, the Levachu, Temaja Bevezo, you were charged of a visit, Sonan Yabeji, Jovachi, Kudo, Jimenez, you were Chambo, Kangi, attention, Omega. So we are on page 241, right? So before, I think page 40, 41, 40, I think trying to explain that in the Pasangi school, in the Prasangic school, particularly Prasangic schools, the both the grasping of self of person and the phenomena are considered to be afflictive emotions. So it's uncommon to from the Abhidhamma traditions, like Swatantika school, Vabhashika school, mind-only school. So they consider the grasping of self persons and the phenomena. The grasping of self person is the delusions. The grasping of self phenomena are not the delusions. So the Prasangic school, both are equally is afflictive emotions. Afflictions, yeah. And I think there's a little difference, afflictive emotion and afflictions. So here the ignorance and afflictions. Every ignorance is in the Prasangic school, is afflictions, and afflictive emotions mean something that is the emotional factors that drive from the ignorance, like anger, attachment, jealousies. These are afflictive emotions, right? So maybe because of the language that we use, emotion, the ignorance, not necessarily emotion, right? It's simply, misconceiving the reality, right? So, but still, you say it's the afflictions. So Chandrakirti commentary on this line says, delusions refer to the ignorance, for it apprehends the things as real. As such, it operates by way of exaggerations and the superimposing truly existing nature upon things. So these are the known delusions, right? So then the attachment and so on, attachment, angers, all the afflictive emotions also operate by thoroughly attributing the quality of attractiveness or unattractiveness upon nature of things imputed by the delusions, imputed by the ignorance here, the grasping of several phenomena, several persons. So whatever the target that's set up by these two ignorance, so the anger and the attachment and the feeling up with this target. So therefore, the anger and attachments, all the afflictive emotions, so they do not operate independently of the delusions. So which means anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and all the afflictive emotions they do not operate independently from that grasping of self, person, and the phenomena. So, yeah. Furthermore, they are, as I said, contingent, contingent on the delusions. In that, delusions is the primary factors. So now we should know this. This grasping of self, person, and phenomena are primary factors. How it is primary factors means it operates, the rest of the afflictive emotions operate by these two ignorance, and all the afflictive emotions do not operate or do not actively functioning independently from these two ignorance. So which means it triggers by the the grasping self persons, and it goes merged with each afflictive emotions, and each of the afflictive emotions having arisen
And that again, what do you call it? Generates generates, or it's strengthening the true ignorance. So the true ignorance is from the beginning, at the same time, and at the end. So this is like double engine, right? So and like, for example, when attachments manifest, that the target that is feeding up this attachment, that target is already set up by this true ignorance, right? And then when the attachments find their targets in the aspect of attractiveness, and then so at that time again this true ignorance is there and actively functioning with this attachment. When anger arises, anger finds unattractiveness. That the target, the anger, and anger is imagining, is unattractiveness is also target is already set up by true ignorance. So therefore, when the anger is manifest, at the same time with that anger, this true ignorance is there and functioning with it. So this is why I think this pretty much giving you the picture of how the ignorance is the root of the afflictive emotions, right? It always comes from the beginning, and with it, and at the end, right? So this true ignorance is, pulling up all the afflictive emotions, and all the afflictive emotions, and also pushed by this. So the contingent on the delusions in that delusions is the primary factors. Up to the end of the first sentence shows that delusions here refer to the grasping at true existence. So the delusion here in this Chandrakirti's commentaries, delusions referring to the true ignorance. So ignorance here, the grasping at true existence. The statement that attachment and so on do not operate independently of the delusions indicate that they function in association, right? Association with the delusions. So it is underpinned with the ignorance. It pull up by the ignorance, not divorced from it. It's not separate from it. The reason for this the reason for this is the present in the passage that reads the attachment, and so on up to imputed by the delusions, since attractive and unattractive qualities are, superimposed by the incorrect mentations.
I'm not sure what that is.
So I think we understand it. This is the attractive and unattractives. So the anger and attachment is just simply with brush to paint. And then the base way to paint is already set up by true ignorance. Right? Now with angers, you're painting, the color that is find unattractive. Attachments painting is something attractive. So the target is already set up by ignorance. Therefore, ignorance also, underpinned with anger, attachment, and the anger and attachment also, almost like when it complete its functioning, and again it goes back into the root of the true ignorance. So the born from it and goes back to the ignorance.
So your metaphor was the two ignorance are like the canvas, like where you paint, and then the afflictive emotions, anger and attachment are like the brush. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
And then the painting is what we get from it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
So this is the right word. Yeah, I think what I'm saying is the true ignorance, the grasping of self-person, the grasping of self-phenomena, the superimposition of the object, due to this true ignorance. The superimpositional factor of the superimposition of the object is it is the basis for an attachment to find attractive, anger to find unattractive. So the very superimposition, right, truly existing of the phenomena are the object, and then from the attachment, it's find is attractive, anger finds unattractive. So which is in fact a cause of attachment, which is in fact a cause of attachment and aversion. The passage here does not identify the mode of apprehension of attachment and aversion themselves. Therefore, the phrase "up on the nature of things imputed by delusions" is to be understood to mean that attachment and aversions operate on the basis of superimposing intrinsically existing quality of the attractiveness and unattractiveness. The passage is not saying that it is only the true existings superimposed by the delusions that they constitute the focal object of attachment and so on. So you understand it, right? The passage is not saying it is not only the true existence or the true existence superimposed by delusions that constitute the focal object. So the ignorance is not really constituting the attractiveness and unattractiveness. Ignorance is only, so it constitute or making, superimposing the true nature of the phenomena, right? So that is the basis. Then anger comes, and the painting is unattractive. Attachment comes as attractive. So, like, sometimes you see, like, when in India, you can see there's in the village, along, what do you call it? In the village, there's a road, right? Along the side of the road, there's a big people tree. People tree, the Bodhi tree, and then sometimes you see underneath the Bodhi trees there's a black stone, and they marked, the colors, like there's a red color or something. So now this people, some of the Hindu, they think it's a rock, and then it's painted in the red, so which means there is some kind of Paramatma, the Bhagavan, right? And others who are not believing in that, they just find it's a rock. Because out of devotions, you find there's a Bhagavan in the rock, right? So other who are not believing in that, it's just simple in the rock. So this, you're painting it with your, your emotions. So the anger and attachment is just to paint. Right? So the target that is given, for the painting is, true ignorance.
Two.
Huh?
Two. You said two.
True ignorance. True ignorance. Again, sure. Do I need to say that? True ignorance. The grasping of self of person and the grasping of self phenomena. So the constitute focal objects, that means so on. That is in the differentiations between the focus and aspect of these emotions. Focus and aspect of these emotions. So this is because between the two factors of the object of true innate self-grasping, their focal object and their object in terms of apprehending the aspect, their focal object do exist and established as established basis. Now here, this is pretty much in this usually focal object. Sometimes people use the focal object is mental creations as the focal object. Now in this line, the focal objects means, by when you having seen your body and you impose the self person. So the self person in general, like maybe I'll just for the non-Buddhist school, like Samkhya school, they consider the sound is the nature of the sound is permanent. And Buddhist says the sound is the best example of impermanent. Now, focal object here is just general sound. And then, what you are imputing on, you say, oh, the sound disappears in the sky, in the space. It goes back in the space. The space is space, the nature of the space is permanent. So sound comes from the space, goes in the space. So that's the reason this is a sound is the permanent. Right? So Buddha says the focal object here is the sound, general sound. And then, so it produced by the cosmic conditions, and by, once it's having been produced, and then instant it's changing and then disintegrating and the cease to exist. So that's why the sound is the impermanent. So now here the focal object of I, it's general I, conventional I, is the focal object. Now the grasping itself of person and phenomena is superimposing on that conventional I as a truly existing. It is intrinsically existing, right? So that is superimposed by true ignorance. The focal object has to be established basis. It exists in reality, right? So conventional I exists in reality, and so in the reality, the conventional I is relatively exist. So because it's relatively exists, it does not exist intrinsically. Right? So the ignorance is superimposing that conventional reality to be intrinsically existence. Right? So in this line is the focal object, and so saying that the focal object do exist as established base. Like conventional I exists as established base. And since the afflictions such as attachment and attachment are afflictions such as the afflictions such as attachment are, what's that, concomitant? Huh?
Naturally accompanying or associated.
Or concomitant with the delusions. So the afflictive emotions are connected or associating with the ignorance. So their focal object is the same as that of the delusions. This means the attachment and aversion are defined by their aspect of the attractions towards an object and repulsions from the object induced by the two type of incorrect mentations. So it's like more mental factors. It's two kind of mental factors like anger and attachments, So attractions and attractiveness and unattractiveness is induced by the two type of incorrect mentations. So this is sometimes we call is the soul. Ignorance is the like in Tibetan grammar. This is letter A is the soul of all letters. A there's A, B there's A, right? C there R sound. R is the what soul? Yeah, soul of all the letters. So similarly here, the ignorance, the grasping of true existence, apprehending every phenomenon is intrinsically existing, is the soul of each and every afflictive emotions. Without that, no afflictive emotion can function, cannot be active. Anger cannot be active without this ignorance. But ignorance is not the anger, but without ignorance, there's no function of the anger, there's no function of the attachment. Right? So it always, driven by the ignorance, it operates with association with the ignorance, and it's also, it's always relying on, depending upon ignorance. So state of mind with aspect of wanting or not wanting, induced by the grasping at person as a self-sufficient. Now this is another story, so here the true ignorance, apprehending things intrinsically exist, all right, conceiving everything as intrinsically existing. That includes the grasping a self person, the grasping a self phenomena. Both are, the apprehending things intrinsically existence. So now this is the in the Prasangika school. This is the root. This almost like a soul of each and every afflictive emotions, and each of the afflictive emotion arises or functioning with this, ignorance that grasping everything is intrinsically existence. So now this is when it comes to the innate. So this is a very innate ignorance, right? And then another level of, the grasping the self person is a little bit grosser, like grasping at person as self-sufficient. It's almost like a non-Buddhist school non-Buddhist school, philosophically, they're trying to, they're very much intended to believing that, the self is something independent. Self is something independent from the body, independent from the feeling, independent from the perceptions, independent from the discrimination awareness, independent from each of the emotions. So that is non-Buddhist school, imputedly in the grasping at the independent self. The self-sufficient is very much similar, but it's not philosophically intended to, believing the independent I, but innately, when we say, oh, this is mine, and this is your, and this is my feeling, this is my thought. So which means you have innately the grasping of the self. It is self-sufficient. It exists by its own, right? So that's the grasping self as a self in the grasping of self that exists self-sufficiently. It is not this, self-sufficiently is, when you compare it with the grasping self intrinsically and grasping self-sufficiently, two things. Intrinsically is more settled and more settled, and the self-sufficient is more little bit grosser, right? So the both can be innately, the innate ignorance. Self-sufficiency, substantial realities alone is not defined here as attachment and aversions. Therefore, the way in which attachment and aversions defined is also quite different here. In Chandrakirti and text, this is said in your Mochinyam, commotion chitments. Chandrakirti in this. I think, chapter 10, maybe. It's a wisdom chapter. So there's the argument with minor-only school, and particularly the Abhidhamma school. And the Abhidhamma school, so there, the understanding of the afflictive emotions like anger and attachments, is, rooted in the grasping of self-sufficient I. So the grasping of self-sufficient I is the afflictive emotions, the afflictions, and then all the afflictive emotions derive from the grasping of self-sufficient I. And then the Shantidevas, brings the argument saying that, so although you have by negating the self-sufficient I, the I as something independent. Huh?
You too.
Yeah, you do so. Yeah. So Shantideva says, so by negating the self-sufficient I, there is still, space for, although there's no self-sufficient, self is not independent, but self is inherent in continuity of the consciousness. So when you negate the self-sufficient I and constantly meditating upon that, you may gain the direct realization of absence of self-sufficient I. So, but still you haven't, emptied intrinsic I. So I can be still, there's a inherently exists from the continuity of the consciousness or the collection of the aggregates.
There's two different kind of direct perception can possibly in emptiness.
Here the two emptiness of the I. One emptiness of I is emptiness of self-sufficient I, emptiness of intrinsic I.
There's two different direct.
Yeah. So this Chandrakirti, the argument is, so when you say the self-sufficient I, the grasping of self-sufficient I is the root of all afflictive emotions. So then by negating the self-sufficient I and continuously meditating on that, you may gain direct realization of absence of self-sufficient I, but you still keep that intact of intrinsic I. So then why not? Why not? When there is intrinsic I, so that can be used as the target for the anger and the attachments. There is possible of allowing this, the afflictive emotion like anger and attachments, which is not mentioned in your Abhidhamma school. So this is like sending your emotion legitimacy. So something that you have a block from one side, but the other side you did not really block. There is a chances for developing the emotions, negative emotions, because there is, and so Ashadideva says, because there is the solid target here, so that solid target will, feed the anger and attachment, or the anger and attachment. So, and then Shantideva and use the quote from the sutra. Even the Buddha says, whenever there is, solid target, intrinsic natures, so it is, it is nature that, three poisons can be manifest, can be active, because there is, the mind to grasp intrinsic things. So then, and the Buddha also says, whenever there is intrinsic, intrinsic natures.
Check. Okay. For some reason, I can't access it.
So nature semda denang you want to jiminjus. So with nature semda denang when never means it's something that nature means basis or and the the ground to be land, right? When the mind sees there's some in the ground, to be landed. So which means there is some kind of provided the target. So when there's always target, there's always subject that is engaging or perceiving or conceiving that. So when there is a solid target, there is possible of three poisons could manifest. Right. So in the sutra there's a nature statement because it's all about the basis for the ignorance for the sentient beings to commit the karma. Like, and Buddha says, like one who is just living in a very simple life, picking the flowers, making the garland, and selling it, just living on that thing. They are not really engaged in doing some bad things, but simply, just in their simple life, they generate afflictive emotions and committed the karma. That in this way they can fall in the lower realm. So what is so what is that thing that triggers this one who is just picking up the flowers and making garland and selling it? and who can commit the karma, they can fall in the lower realm because the grasping itself is there, right? So the Chandrakirti's argument is like, so this is what Buddha says, and this is what you are negating. You are negating self-sufficient I. You keep the intact of the intrinsic I. So when you have the solid target, and it is almost like inevitable to not to manifest the three poisons. So that when there is the three poisons, although you have developed direct realization of absence of self-sufficient I, but still you have just the space enough for developing the afflictive emotions. So to understand the self-sufficient I and intrinsic I is the big difference there. Self-sufficient, usually because self-sufficient means, the person who is, not relying on other people's, right? Similarly, the I that is exist by itself without depending on body, feeling, perceptions, mental formations. So almost like this is like as an owner, this so that kind of I. So if you negate, by the reasoning and by negating the self-sufficient I, so you still haven't completely negated intrinsic I. So how much you have understood that self-empty or self-sufficient I is still you have open space for another type of anger and attachment. You may prevent the anger and attachment that drive from the self-sufficient I, but you haven't blocked completely. So there is the anger attachment can manifest or can arise from intrinsic I. Yeah. I think here, we are, Chandrakirti's the idea of the liberation's enlightenment is, what do you call it? The feasibility of liberations is you are the one who is feasible to be enlightened. Right? So then how can you be enlightened? And also the negative, the one that blocking, the obscuring the attainment of enlightenment is within you. And you are also the potential to be enlightened. So now the problem is the enlightenment is not given or provided by some third persons. So enlightenment is to be revealed within yourself, and which means you have to have a knowledge of what are the obscurations that obscuring to kind of realization of the enlightenment. So it's all in you, right? So you have the obscuration, you have the potential. So the way they remove the obscurations, a definement of the obscurations is through through a wisdom that understands the reality as it is. So then what is that reality? By revealing it, and you can overcome all the obscurations. And then when it comes to the wisdom, then there's this, the one wisdom says, there is no self-sufficient I, but the I can exist. I can define the illustrations within the aggregates. I can be found from the collection of the aggregate. I can be found in the continuity of the consciousness. Right? So the one wisdom says, no self-sufficient I, no independent I, but I intrinsically inherent in the collections or within the continuity consciousness. So another wisdom says, I or the self never really exist within the basis. So all the five aggregates as a totally devoid of self or person. So these two wisdoms is, the both claims that I can lead you to the liberations. So now in this Chandrakirti is saying, the absence of the self-sufficient I is not going to lead you to the liberation because it has no power enough to overcome, to prevent all the afflictive emotions. This even cannot totally prevent attachment. Because how much you have gained these realizations, even that you have direct realization of self-sufficient I, you still in your mind there's a solid target, intrinsic I there. So when there is the intrinsic I, and it can be feed for the afflictive emotion like anger and attachment. So when you have, so sometimes like, when you clean up the room, with broom or vacuum, it's a difference. If you use the broom to clean it up, and there's still some kind of, there's a small piece of the food that breeds around there. There's still the chances for the cockroaches to come, right? So if you vacuum it and you just, mop, it completely, cleaned it up, so then it can prevent. Right? So here, simply by emptying the self-sufficient I is not really cleaning up, completely, because there's still the chances, because you have I in collection, I in one continuity consciousness. So when there is self or I that exist, inherent in the aggregates, so there is always chances for the three poisons to manifest. Right.
So that differs from Prasangika, who say that there is I conceptually through continuity. That's the difference. The other one is saying that there's an actual basis.
Because the medieval autonomous schools, mind-only school, they're all things, Sodhantika things. Some Sodhantika schools say, the continuity of the mental consciousness, continuum is the I.
Consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay.
The continuity of the consciousness is me. It is the I. It is the person. And then some of the Vaibhashika school, some of the Vivek school says, if the collection is the person, collections, body, feeling, sense faculties, all together, the collection, the gather is the person. And minority school says, oh, it is, the self, a person can be inherent in and mental consciousness. So which means now they're all together, they agree that no self-sufficient I. So the who is, so the propounding of the self-sufficient eyes is a non-Buddhist school. So non-Buddhist school says Atma, it is independent. The I self is independent. It is independent from the body, independent from the feeling, independent from the perceptions. So when the person dies, this Atma never die. Right? So still it's very, when you say person dying, are you referring to the body or something else? Or you're just trying to, match up with languages. So your Atma never dies, and how can you say the person died? Person never died. So self-sufficient I, philosophically, propounding, there is a self-sufficient I, is a non-Buddhist school. So all this, except the Prasangika school, all the Buddhist school refuting that self-sufficient I, but still, they accept, they kind of, they understood the self is inherent in the collection or the continuation or the mental consciousness. So the Prasangika school says, in this way you cannot, there is no possible of, liberations. With this concept, with this belief, there is no possible of the liberations. Liberation means total freedom from the afflictive emotions. So total freedom from the afflictive emotions, the afflictive emotion to prevent them to not allowing or no making impossible of afflictive emotion to manifest is not feeding them. No food for afflictive emotions. So when you say the I inherent in collection, in continuity consciousness, in particular mental consciousness means there's the food for the afflictive emotions to manifest. So these can be fed up for negative emotions. And then Shantideva also mentioned, so bringing the, quote, right, from the sutras, so nature semdandenamas, when there is the ground for the mind to grasp, why not three poisons will manifest? Like, a person who is living a very simple life, and simple life, they are not killing, they are not stealing, they are not lying, but still, so they can commit the karma, they can fall in the lower realms. What is that thing? Is this, individual, although living a very simple life, but their mind is very aggressively, actively, the grasping on the intrinsic I. So this intrinsic I can, by grasping on them, can triggers the strong afflictive emotions continuously. With that, the actions with the body, verbal, mind can create the karma to propel them in the lower realm. So it's kind of insane. They're trying to define the state of the liberations here. So psychic school trying to, what do you call, presents the pure nature of the liberations means is, totally freedom or cleaning up all the afflictive emotions. So if the mind reaches there, so there is the liberations. So realization of emptiness of realization of emptiness of the person, and grasping of the grasping of self of persons. The both focal object, it shares the same thing. The focal object is conventional I, right? So the conventional I is relatively exist. It is the real. Now, the grasping of self person is by superimposing on the conventional reality to be true natures, is something intrinsically exists. And the realization of emptiness is based on that focal object in the conventional reality, conventional I, saying this is not intrinsic. So this is not intrinsic means it is not annihilating the existence of the conventional reality, simply negating, the like precisely intrinsic nature is empty. Yeah. So this line, the Chandrakirti, usually this is very, very what do you call it? So when we're debating, this line was very, very important. So this, based on that, we can debate. So Chandrakirti's commentary on these lines, delusions refer to the ignorance, for it apprehends things as real as such. It operates by way of exaggeration, superimposing truly existing nature upon things. So that is defining what is the ignorant is. And then the second, attachment and so on, also operate by thoroughly attributing the qualities of the attractiveness or unattractiveness upon the natures, things that imputed by delusions. So this has become a very, big debate. So some people think that, so in this, seems like this line is saying anger and attachment is, no different from grasping a true nature of the phenomena. If the anger and attachment is, the misconception, conceiving, true nature, truly existing of the phenomena. So then, by emptying the object of anger, you may realize emptiness, right? And so in the text, there's some kind of practice for the some kind of meditation says. So if someone who is more has a problem with anger, or some people may have more a problem with attachment. So how can you really deduce them? And then there's this, meditating on the conditional suffering, or meditating on the skeletons. So this is, this may help you to, to reduce the attachment, because it is opposite the attachment. And the compassion is opposite of the anger. So does that mean, meditating on the skeletons and impermanence, this has it really reveals the emptiness, because the anger and attachment is nothing but ignorance. So some people bring this line, says the attachment and so on also operate by thoroughly attributing the quality of the attractiveness and unattractiveness upon the nature of the things imputed by delusions. So now here we are saying, no, anger and attachment is not the misconception that conceiving the true nature of the phenomena, but it is underpinned with, it is associated with. It's not saying anger and attachment is the ignorance. So anger and attachment is associating or functioning, emerging with the ignorance. It's not saying these two, anger and attachment, all the afflictive emotions are ignorance. So some people really kind of being arguing with this, because it's because thoroughly attributing the qualities of the attractive and unattractiveness up on the nature of the things that imputed by delusions. So
would you argue that if your point of view is self-sufficient I? Why did they argue that? Right.
So by reading this line, some people think that, oh, this line is actually indicating the anger and the attachments are no different from the ignorance. If the anger and the attachments is no different from the ignorance, how can the attachment can reduce or they remove simply by meditating on the skeleton? And how can the unattracted substance can reduce the attachment? So focusing on the unattracted substance is not going to help you to remove the ignorance. So if the attachment is ignorance, so how can that be so easy to reduce, to weakening by contemplating on the unattractive substance? And how can how can that the anger reducing, the weakening by meditating on the compassion? So does that mean the compassion has realized the emptiness? So then this is, we are not saying, this line is not indicating anger and attachments are the ignorance. The anger, the attachment is driven by ignorance, associated with ignorance. Right? Is driven by and associated with ignorance, is not the ignorance. Right? So then how this two, the anger and attachments manifests, that triggers by the ignorance, as in the solid, the object, that solid target is provided by the ignorance, and then you paint it on that solid target. So attachment painted as attractive, anger painted as unattractive. These two aspects that you paint by these two emotions the aspect can be reduced, aspect can be changed by thinking opposite. Attractive, opposite, unattractive. Thinking attractive can be reduced. Unattractive, unfavorable that aspect can be changed by compassions. sentient beings is like friendly, your friends, the relatives, like, you know. So this is like, you know, sometimes in a yellow color. So yellow colors is the basic yellow. And then if you mix with blue and become green, and if you mix with orange, become gold, right? So the yellow is the basis. So the anger and attachments, like, you know, anger brings the blue colors to change to green, and attachment, you know, brings the orange to become gold colors. So the basis, the yellow color is there. So that is the setup by the ignorance. So yeah, so this whole, you know, it's continuously implying that, you know, Dharma, they will take refuge. So the, you know, is just not really physical distance, it's not different. So it's within you. So you know this, the focal object is the established base. So we call it Shidrubhas. It's established base. Means the base is, you know, how say, conventionally and established, which means relatively exist. Since afflictions, attachments, the concomitant with delusions, their focal object is the same as that of the delusions. This means the attachment and aversions are defined by their aspect of the attractive attractions towards the object, repulsions from the object that induced by the two type of incorrect mentations. So state of mind with aspect of wanting and not wanting induced by the grasping at person as self-sufficient, the substantial realities alone, substantial realities alone is not defined here as a attachment and aversions. Therefore, the way in which attachment and aversions are defined is also quite different here. So this Prasangika school talking about the anger and attachments, which that anger and attachments is which is not really mentioned in the Abhidhamma school as a delusions. So according to the Abhidhamma school, is not delusions, but Prasangika sees find this is the delusions. So the sum of the delusions that are not found or not, how say, it's not found in the Abhidhamma school. So like, you know, Vavashika school, Sadantika school, Minor school, you know, there are some, you know, attachment and aversions they cannot understand, right? The anger and attachments which are not really understood to be afflictive emotion in the Abhidhamma school. So here, the anger and attachments which are not considered the afflictive emotion in the law school is, you know, so the anger and attachment that are driven by, you know, they're grasping at, intrinsic nature. So that is really still, haven't really understood in the Abhidhamma school. So Abhidhamma school, they think, emptying the self-sufficient I and continuously meditating, and you gain the direct realizations, and then continuous meditating, then you can attain the liberations. The Prasangika school says, just emptying the self-sufficient I is not going to let you free from the afflictive emotions. Even you are not going to free from anger and attachments. So then what are those anger and attachments that is not, let you free, let you free? So then says, the anger and attachment that is manifest based on the intrinsic qualities. So that cannot be removed by empty of the self-sufficient I.
Abhidhamma also considered them as a delusion. It's a different level.
Abhidhamma, there is no idea of, the afflictive emotions, the like anger and attachments, which are not driven by self-sufficient I, and simply, manifest from the intrinsic nature. Because the Abhidhamma school thinks that, I being intrinsic nature is not an ignorance. Right? It's not ignorance. It is the right perceptions. So the Prasangika school, so this, the idea of negating, emptying intrinsic nature on all phenomena. So this is, having hard time for the, Siddhantika school, Mayamuna school, even the middle school, to digest that. They think it's really totally following the nihilism. Nothing intrinsically exists. It's almost like it is, impossible for them to accept. In Lama Tsongkaphas, Prajaparami, the commentaries. So there's a lecture setting. There's a very thick book. So he wrote that when he was 25, around 25. So in the final some pages, it says, mentioned about the Prasangika school, and it says, just by, following it really, it scares them. So when he was 25, he really, saying that he hasn't really understood the Prasangika school point of view. Just simply by imagining, conceiving in this way, it really scares him. So then after he go to retreat and Manjushris. So then he wrote the essence of the eloquence and the commentary on the root of the middle ways. So this is furthermore, they are contingent on the delusions, means that it is through the initial delusion of the grasping at things as existing by way of their characteristics that attachment and aversion are brought forth. The analogy of the body faculty, right? And its connection to the body illustrates illustrate that just as there is no support for other four sense faculties, that is the, discrete from the body. Similarly, all the afflictions operate with delusions as their support and is not divorced from the delusions. Because of this, all the afflictions will become undone if the delusion is destroyed. Thus, the Ayadeva says we should never revere, right? We should revere. We should revere that discourse on the dependent originations is in terms of the emptiness of the intrinsic existence, which is its antidote. So the grasping of the intrinsic nature is now he was setting the example like in the sensorial and the sense faculties. So what is the very basic, how this like eye sense power, nose sense power, ear sense power, tongue sense powers. So where those the sense powers are, the part of. So then it says this whole the four sense powers is a part of the body sense power. So body sense powers, with body sense power, there's the eye sense power, nose sense power, tongue sense powers. So similarly, the grasping of the intrinsic nature is like body sense powers. With that, and then there's a self-sufficient I grasp myself, and there's the anger and the attachment. When this ceased, this grasping is, grasping the true nature of this intrinsic natures, then cease, all the afflictive emotions collapse with that. When the body sense power cease, no eye functioning, no nose functioning, no ear functioning. Yeah, so what do you think now? So sometimes it's, this, from this, the idea here, they say the root as like a body sense power is intrinsic natures, seeing intrinsic nature in all phenomena. And then this is the basis for that. And we add up, and with that very base, you are adding up and self-sufficient I, and then attachment says attractive, anger says unattractive. And then and the jealousy, the pride, and the spite, and the belligerence, all brings their own flavor on that intrinsic natures. So then you find, you find there's so much things to deal with. And then he says, you don't have to deal with each emotions, just deal with the root. What is really, holding all of them? So the grasping in intrinsic nature is the root. So if you deal with that, and everything is, everything can be dealt with, right? By, addressing this, the grasping this, intrinsic nature of the phenomena. So in the life, we find there's so many things happening, like almost like I cannot really handle. I'm so overwhelmed. It's the same, like every day you find that some persons and then you find another condition, another condition, another condition. Each condition that's happening, your emotional also, attributing the characteristic of each things. And then you think, oh, this is too much. Right? Almost like they are really not attributed by you. It is, it's naturally, it comes to exist. So that's where you find it's like too many things to do. In the reality in the life, there is not too many things. So in the real life, there's no too many things. There are only, if you try to be more closer looking into the life that is really, manifest every day. So what you have is the air that breathe in and out, the moisture, the heat, and the space, and then the kind of solidities, and then this consciousness, the contact with the sense powers, So that is the very basic things. And then your emotional says, oh, with this may happen. Now you are just, you're calculating or you're speculating. With that, this happened. This means this, right? So you have, you keep painting, and with every changing, every conditions, every event, and you're, attributing the characteristics that does not really exist by itself. You with your emotions, you are, the attributing the characteristic on each event and each things. So when it rains and say, and so you are emotional. If you are very happy, oh, this is very, very good. It's raining, and you are not really feel good. So this is so there's nothing from the rain side, and there's from the water that falls on the ground. So your emotions is what do you call it? Interpreting, right? So that bad or good. So to how is that? To make them quiet, all the emotions. So making a lot of noise to to silence them is to deal with ignorance. So by dealing with ignorance, you can silence all the emotions, and then you can be, so you can really see the real nature of yourself. So if you completely, convincingly understand the real nature of yourself, and you are, without any delusions, without any emotions, you have touched, become inseparable with your nature, is called transcendence of the suffering. So that is the liberations. So that is right from the beginnings with you. So it's just cover up, concealed by continuously projecting, with the emotions, projecting things. That dance of this too many, how say, the cloud of the emotions, and that conceal the reality, real nature of yourself. So Dharma is you're taking refuge to the Dharma, but you are also concealing the real Dharma. You're just covering up Dharma, but you still, the every actions, verbal and physical, mental actions. So the, is all about trying to conceal the real nature, but your desires is, I want to be liberation. I want to be happy. So this is very, and these ordinary sentient beings, it's like they're very, they live in very big contradictions. Grasping themes existing by the way of the characteristics that attachment and aversion are brought forth, analogy of body faculties and its connections to the body illustration. To the body illustrate that just as there is no support for the other four sense faculties, that is separate, from the body, and similarly the afflictions operate with delusions as their support and not divorced from the delusions. Because of this, all the afflictions will become undone. Delusion is destroyed. Thus, Ayadeva says we should revere the discourse on the dependent originations in terms of the emptiness in intrinsic existence, which is its antidote. So the emptiness is the antidote of all the afflicted emotions. Because ignorance is the mother of all the emotionals. Ignorance is the mother of all the afflicted emotions. So the realization of emptiness is the antidote for all the emotionals. So that's why realization of emptiness is the mother of all Arya beings, right? So we are the un-Aryas born from ignorance. So the grasping true existence of the things is described in the 70 stanzas of the emptiness as the ignorance that is the root of the second existence. And the 60 verses of the reasoning also says, having found a locus, one is caught by the twisting snake of the afflictions. Those whose minds have no locus will not snared by such. This is what I said earlier, sutras. Nature I think this is a little bit different. Locus is, it's a ground or the basis, right? So having found a locus once, when your mind had found the solid basis to be ground, to be landed, so which means when your mind sees any solid target, so there's always the afflictive emotions, to manifest. There's a possible chances for afflictive emotion to manifest. Having found a locus, so one is caught by the twisting snake of afflictions. Twisting snake. Usually this, I don't know this why this is snake. Usually the three poisons. Why not three poison will manifest? Why not? Right? Because the three poisons always manifest, due to this ignorance. So ignorance is always manifest when there is a solid target. So those whose mind have no locus will not be snared by such a snake.
Caught. It's like be caught.
Yeah, so snared is trapped, right? Yeah, this is very So this is a little bit different. These the wordings are in the Lama Tsongkapha's commentaries. And, lines of these 60 stanzas. You to do using the symbol name theta similars. Name theta similars. So whose mind finds, no locus means when the mind comes to understand everything is absent of intrinsic qualities, means it's almost like the absence, it's just space. And objectively, nothing really exists by their own essence. So in that space, no locus, no ground for land, so no solid target. So those whose mind finds no locus cannot be trapped in the, three poisons. So when I was in the monastery, I always very, kind of there's annoyed that the line keep changing in the different texts. In the one line, right? If this is the taught by the sutras, and everyone should, write the same. So what the even the wordings, right? It has to be exactly. So it is master. They keep changing the kind of wordings. So really, it's almost like there's a corruption. So the line that in my mind, so it was in the sutra, and these the commentary of that. So one of the great Amdugindichile, there's a great masters. When he went to Sri Lanka, he in his biography says he found this sutra, and then the commentary made by the Theravada masters, and then this is how he kind of comment on these sutras, the locus like that. So in sutra this says, neje semna denamas. When you found the locus, when you found intrinsic basis, why not three points manifest? Then the example is one who is very living ordinarily can be caught in the karma and fall in the lower realms. So this travel the masters, and he was, the house there, commenting on this line. When you see the intrinsic basis, why not three points manifest? Even one who is simply living a life, picking up the flowers, making the garland and selling, living on that, can, caught by the three poisons in committing the negative karma and falling in the lower realms. So ordinarily living can be caught in the three poisons and create the karma and fall in the lower realms. So this, the line and the commentaries is made by the Sri Lankan masters. Yeah, any questions? So, when you read this, then that's kind of give you the picture of the liberations. What is the meaning of the liberations? It's almost like why you are not liberated. Why you are not liberated. So your nature is, from the beginning, primordially, is absence of intrinsic. Why you are not understood yourself. What you haven't revealed yourself. Why you haven't have a time to look your nature. So then we say we are busy with our own emotional creations. So I'm trying to going after chasing my own projections. That's why we have no time. So that's why we haven't revealed the actual nature of myself. So then we think, so liberation always be thought about, or something that, by doing this, this may, the liberation is like almost like your, for example, when you collect the milk, you heat up the milk, and you put substance in that, and you wait tomorrow, and the milk turns into yogurt. So you also expect the liberation is like that, You bake to, sweet potato, and wait, looking at the time. So maybe after 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it's been ready to eat. So similarly, you are expecting the liberation in this way is totally misunderstood, the liberations. Liberation is not a product that can be produced, that can be manifest from something. Liberation is, understanding your own reality as it is. So what is that thing that obscures you to see that very nature is, our, to ignorance and those 6 root afflictive emotions, 20 secondary delusions. So this conceals the liberations, right? So sometimes when you walk in the very thick, dense fog, so you still have you exist, but you're still not knowing where your your feet is grounding, right? So because of this fog, you are not seeing yourself. Yeah. Any questions? Unquestionable. Sometimes religion is if you question, you may go lower round. Okay. Chanju Semja Rinpoche, Majepa, Jejuchi, Kebanya, Bambeba, Kone Kondo Pevrasha, Tonye Tawa Rinpoche, Majepa, Jejuchi, Kebanya, Bambeba, Kone Kondo Pevrasha, Pama Semjen Tamjen, Deda Denjuchi, Nendro Tamje, Tado Towa, Chanju Semba, Kana Suju, Teda Kunji, Molom Jujuruchi, Karera Veko, Shengansu, Penda, De Wama, Lujo, Cheresama, Tinzin Jazu, Shabe, Side Badu, Tejuchi.
May the precious holy mind not yet born rise and grow. May the bone of no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born rise and grow. May the bone of no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother's achievings them all happiness. And may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, You are the source of all benefit and happiness. More powerful transit continue. Remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you very much.